what are some of the different tools that help support the survivors when they're in shelter?
Okay, so the tools that I use is so I give them like a list of like virtual AA meetings and virtual NA meetings. And I also teach them how to download the Zoom during my assessment with them. I take the phone and I ask them for permission first, and then I tell them if they want to learn how to use it. Sometimes I use my own phone so they could learn how to use the Zoom. So
Mhm.
I down after they see it, I actually put one meeting alive so that they could see how it works. And I tell them you could change your number, you could put your pronouns, you could you don't have to show your face if you don't want to. You could look, you could, giving them the tools. I call them a toolbox. So I give
Mhm.
them there's a AA 24-hour virtual meeting. So they have that on hand. I also text it to them. I send them a picture. And then NA meetings as well. I send it to them depending on their drug of choice.
Mhm.
And I also send them, I give them like a folder with my number, with the, like detox number and 800 number, 211 if needed. And I explain to them all the different tools to stay sober and letting them know that it's possible. It's very important for them to know that is, that you could reach it. And as well, I if I see that the person is having a hard time to get sober, or that they keep drinking or using any type of drugs, if what I try to do is get them a psych eval as well. So I have an APN that does the psych eval on Sundays, and it's virtually, so it's basically easier than ever. You have everything like right there on your phone. So I try
Mhm.
to help them because I really want them to achieve sobriety and to break the cycle of domestic violence as well. Stay in recovery. So I do all those little tragedies.
Yeah. And then for survivors who are already, who, let's say they're maintaining their recovery when they come to shelter and they're in crisis. And we know that whenever there's crisis, there can be a risk of going back to use or going back to use in a way that, they don't want to, that's counter to their goals. So what are some different tools and strategies for people who maybe are in recovery already, but because they're in crisis, they'd like some resources to maintain that.
So literally in that moment, they already have my number and they will call me. And if I'm busy, I will call them right after. I'll text them, I'll be right with you, give me 10 minutes. But it's very crucial, like in my case, for them to know also that they could go to like they'll go to the office and the team is there for them. Like during a crisis, what I do, if I have to go inside the shelter, I will drive to the shelter and help them ground them, like giving them that grounding exercises and letting them know that they will be okay. And if it's over the phone, I actually would do mindfulness during the crisis, and I try to ground them and they breathe. And once they know that you're there for them, they wouldn't go to that flight mode. They will be, that flight and fight mode. So
Mhm.
they will be like more still and knowing that you're there.
Mhm.
I think it's very important for them to know that you're there and keeping up also with your words, not saying like, oh, I'm gonna be there and not pick up the phone, or I'm gonna be there and not text them back. I always tell them, if you call me and I can't talk, I will text you. So
Mhm.
they know like I'm there, and letting, giving them appointments. But during that crisis, it's very important to ground them.
Yeah, so that consistency, that predictability, knowing
Yeah.
that you're dependable, and then being that grounding, soothing presence when they're experiencing, whether it is that fear response or a craving, however that's showing up for them, really being able to be that soothing and calm presence.
Yeah, it's very important you mentioned that as well, because due to the domestic violence trauma, where they want somebody else to hear the voice. So I also love listening to what they need and, letting them shoes for themselves as well, not trying to command or trying to change them. Believing in them is very important as well. And
Mhm.
having and letting them look for what they want and achieving them, by giving them the tools they could achieve their goals.
Yeah.
I made a PDF, persistent, determined, and focused. I always give them little acronyms and they love it. So I tell them, if you're persistent, determined, and focused. Another one that I do a lot with them is the dream board. So
Mhm.
I give them like a whiteboard and I bring a lot of magazines like on Sundays for the group, and then they do the dream board and they put it next to their bed. And
Mhm.
eventually happens, we have a lot of success stories. Actually, it's very, very beautiful seeing them grow like a butterfly. I call them butterflies because they grow so beautiful. And then you see one coming in and then one that's almost leaving. We also help them with paying their rent for the 3 first month. Once they are there, we try to help them find an apartment. Then we pay them the first 3 months. If they are working, we want to make sure that they are able to pay the rent. And then they just fly on their own and they become like little beautiful butterflies. And the butterfly becomes big. So we actually provide them with a lot of tools. And
Yeah.
it's very important as well in the shelter and at domestic violence that everybody's on the same page, like having very good communication. And since I mentioned before that I'm in sobriety for 11 years, I do not bring my sobriety into the client's life because everybody has different ways of achieving sobriety. That's very important. I'm also a CCS, which is a clinical certified supervisor in the substance use field. So it's very crucial not to bring the way that I got sober to somebody else because everybody has their own path. And if they actually relapse, we have to be there for them. It's okay. It's very important to tell them it is okay so that they could feel safe. I love what I do. I mean, like, it's my passion. So for me, seeing somebody just coming to me is a blessing. When I
Mm.
see a referral, I just jump of happiness.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting what you said there that as somebody who has their own experience of becoming sober, that is such a resource for you. But then also, you need to be aware of not to kind of put that on somebody else or not to, that you have to be really careful with how you even decide to share it because you don't want to make anyone else think that this is the only way or that you're trying to choose for them what their path is.
So in my case, that's called harm reduction. So I really believe in recovery. There's different levels. It's like going to school. Like you go to kindergarten, first grade, second grade. Same thing with sobriety. You come in sobriety, so like basically you like a spiritual kindergarten, and then you go to spiritual first grade. Then eventually you go to high school. You get in spirituality. It's literally like the same thing. So if I see somebody as a supervisor or as a clinician, if I am trying to help an RN guy, like if I'm in a place where I hear an RN or a staff member not understanding, I'll tell them, I'll give them some training and letting them know that everybody is like our fingers. They're not the same, they're not the same length. They're not, they're all different. So I try to tell them like everybody has their own path and we just need to find them where they at. And it's very crucial that if you are in recovery, let's say if you get sober, going to AA meetings or NA meeting doesn't mean that the other person cannot go to smart recovery. Smart recovery, they don't have a higher power, but people get sober through there. Or if I went to detox and the other person doesn't want to go to detox, it doesn't mean they're not gonna get sober. It means that that's what they need at that moment, as long as I'm there for them as needed when they need it and
Mhm.
listening to them, because by the way they express themselves, they will verbalize their needs.
Yes. And so, really deeply listening to people and creating that safety in the relationship where people can start to be curious and start to talk about what they're experiencing and what might be helpful. And realizing that there is no one pathway, that there are many ways, that there are many different pathways that we can use in healing.
It's the same as domestic violence. Like we know from statistics that it takes approximately 7 times for a victim to break the cycle of domestic violence. And if the person still goes back, we're there to help them. Especially in the shelter, when we're doing the assessment, we can't close the door on somebody that went for the 8th time to the abuser, because we will never know when is the moment when this abuser will kill the victim. So we just need to be open-minded and believe. That's one thing that some people have problem with, believing in the victims. If they are verbalizing, I feel in fear, we need to believe them, because not everybody's trauma level of trauma is the same. So an example, like if we put 10 people in an event, let's say a fire or a 911, all those 10 people will have different type of trauma. Maybe I would, nothing happens to me, but maybe to my daughter, she got so traumatized that she freezes, and then she has to go through different type of therapy. And maybe we have another one who doesn't even need therapy. So we have to really understand the difference on the person's needs and the level of trauma that they could actually handle. So
Mhm.
it's very, very important to be, I love training, so I'm very active in trainings as well, because I want to be on top of the different type of, especially now during this pandemic, everything is changing that drastically, actually. And we need to be aware with telehealth that is a blessing. We could be here. I actually help more people now than before, because we are like in a touch of a screen. Thank God.